This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's community access radio station Plains FM 96.9 and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
So Circular.
Welcome to So Circular, a sustainability radio show and podcast discussing waste reduction and circular economy. Kia ora katoa katoa, and welcome to Remix Plastic. In this program, in this episode, we're going to be discussing how to communicate sustainability with others. So whether it's your friends and family or staff and colleagues. But first, some good news stories. Excitingly, both the European Union and China have announced bans on single-use plastic items. So obviously there's a lot of small print that goes with that, but the EU aims to ban single-use items such as cutlery, cotton buds, straws and stirrers from 2021, and plastics that have no alternatives available are to be reduced by at least 25% by 2025. And China's is a bit more complicated because they're one of the largest manufacturers of single-use plastics in the world, but they'll be banning plastic bags in all of China's major cities by the end of this year and all cities and towns by the end of the year 2022. Other items such as plastic produce bags and takeaway containers will be phased out. And closer to home, in January, the New Zealand government announced a climate change learning program for schools, and the program is for Year 7 and 8 and aims to help students understand the effects of climate change on a local, national and global scale. And it also includes a really fundamental part of the conversation, which is the emotional experiences for children faced with climate change issues. This is So Circular. You can contact us with your feedback and questions through Facebook or Instagram using the tag @RemixPlastic or via our website, remixplastic.com. Cool, and we're pleased to have Helen Townsend from The Rubbish Whisperer back again to join us in discussing communicating sustainability. Morena, Helen.
Anthea, hello.
So anybody that's attempting waste reduction stuff in their home or in their workplace will know that it seems like an incredibly touchy subject to broach with others. Generally, people's response is to put their guard up and be defensive. And I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know if you agree with me on this, Helen. I'm just going to say it anyway. Okay. I was thinking about it the other day and wonder if it's how sustainability has been viewed in society before now. So is it because people who don't eat meat or who vote Green or who support Greenpeace have in the past had a tendency to be really vocal about it and be in people's face and be confrontational because that's what was required at that time to kind of make people aware of the problems.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I have always thought it's because it makes other people feel guilty.
Yeah, it's kind of, people take it as a bit of a personal attack, I think, when it's not necessarily.
Yeah. There was a while a few years ago where people used to just feel guilty if I walked in the room. Oh, it really sucked for me. Oh. Probably for them too. I was like, I'm not. All I do is just not make much plastic.
And Helen loses all her friends.
Oh, sad.
It is interesting because we're vegetarian in our house, and it's when you mention that to some people, they start saying the reasons why they're not. Like they are trying to explain why they're not doing it, and they are getting defensive. And it is I'm like, I don't care why you're not. I'm just not going to. Like you can eat meat in front of me. I just don't want to eat it. Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah. Maybe people can tell us why.
Yeah. But I guess now that sustainability has made it a lot more into the mainstream, there's going to be a lot of people who care about the planet and don't necessarily want to talk about it all the time. And so that it doesn't have to be like the only thing in the conversations. Mm.
I guess it doesn't define you as a person, hopefully, anymore. It's just normal.
Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe, don't know.
Way to start a program with a question that we can't answer.
Okay. Let's move on to something we know about.
So generally, from my perspective anyway, is that there's two ways to approach the subject with others, is that you can be negative and try and shame people into doing things differently, or you can be positive and celebrate people's successes but still encourage them to do more. Mm-hmm. I tend to take the second approach because it definitely pays off more with me. And it makes you more friends, I guess.
Yeah. I would never take the negative approach because, well, partly
because you want your friends.
Because I want friends and people who aren't my friends to talk to me. But also fear and guilt doesn't motivate people. So there's lots of research that shows that people retract into themselves when faced with fear and guilt. But when faced with hope and solutions, people are more likely to act.
That's the thing. I try to give people, so I run workshops around sustainability, and the whole point of that is to provide people information so that they can feel empowered to do something.
Yep.
So that they don't just look at it and say, oh, it's way too big, it's way beyond me, I'm not going to do anything about this, I'll just sit here and watch the world burn. No.
But it is kind of like that, because if you feel helpless, like you can't do anything, then why do something?
Yeah.
But if you can see a future that is great and sustainable, then it's exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had people ask me how you don't get depressed about all the bad stuff, like how you don't let it stop you doing stuff. And I was like, well, because if you feel like you're doing the best that you can do, and you just don't think about it and don't dwell on it, then you'll just keep going. But if you stop and think about it, then you will just feel overwhelmed. So you kind of just have to head down and...
And like we were talking about in the last episode about supermarkets with solar panels and deliveries and car parks covered with trees. I know, because I'm still so excited about it a month later. But if you think about that, if that just seems so easy. It seems so simple. Yeah. It just needs someone who does in charge of that to do that.
Yeah.
But we can make our lives simpler and better sometimes with being more sustainable and more circular economy focused.
Yeah. So what's this information that you've got to tell me about tree cover in the UK?
Oh, yeah. So did you know
No, I didn't, because I'm asking.
No. Yeah, you did not know that. So there is more tree cover in the UK now than there has been for the past 250 years.
Wow. How's that happened?
Because people have stopped chopping them down and have started planting more. So obviously there's loads of complicated things, like we're not building ships out of trees anymore, so there's other things being used. But as someone who loves trees, and as trees are so awesome for reducing climate change and reversing. What do you say? Reversing? Reducing? Anyway, making the climate better.
Do what you want with it.
It's amazing because you think... So I know there's places in the world where there's obviously... Dramatically less tree cover. But there are places in the world where there is more.
Yeah.
And actually there's loads of places around New Zealand where there's more trees being planted.
Yeah.
And I think that's really exciting.
That's quite cool.
And actually, over half of the tree cover in the UK is in private ownership, which could be bad or could be good. I think that's good because that means you can just go and plant some trees.
Oh, yeah, just have your own.
The trees you plant are just as good as national forest trees, native forest trees.
Does that mean it's forestry, though, in the UK, or just private?
It's both.
Yeah, I guess it would be the same in New Zealand as it is. It would be both. Oh, that's really interesting.
I think it's interesting. New Zealand's got about 30% tree cover.
That seems quite low considering how much wild wilderness we have.
The UK is about 12%.
Oh, okay.
But in 1066-ish, it was around that time, it was 15%. So actually it hasn't changed much in 1,000 years.
That's really interesting. And I guess it's one of those positive news stories, positive stories that people want to be hearing to feel like things are
I think it's positive.
Able to be changed.
I think that just to make it huge, a huge thing, that places that are being deforested are developing countries. So there's massive problems to do with poverty and education and all of those other things that we need to sort out.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that waste reduction is only a part of a massive issue that is climate change, I guess.
When I say we sort out, I don't mean you and me.
Yeah, I don't know how I would
That's
solve
like
that.
a royal... No, not everybody. That's everybody. Not just you and me.
Okay, good.
Okay, sure.
Thank you for taking all that pressure off me.
Oh, I know.
That got a bit heavy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a campaign that was run in Perth, I think it was last year, that was called Face Your Waste. And people might have heard about this because it got quite a lot of news attention. It was see-through wheelie bins that people could put out on their curb. It was really interesting because when I saw it, I thought, oh, that's quite negative to make people feel really guilty and show everybody what their neighbours are doing.
Yeah.
And see how bad everybody's recycling bin is or how much rubbish everybody has each week. Because I thought that was a really negative approach. But it was really interesting because I think the difference is that you're taking it from that one-on-one and being like singling out an individual and saying to them that they should do something differently, to putting it on a big group of people. And the results from it, so it was a trial, and it was actually really positive. So they had a massive change. And a lot of feedback said that people were quite happy with it because they could just walk past and just see what was in people's bins. I guess it connects you with your rubbish, and that's the whole point, is that you face your waste. It connects people with their rubbish that they normally put in a bin that nobody can see in, and they put it out and the council takes it away and they never have to think about that rubbish again.
Yeah.
So that's a situation where, like, being quite confrontational about it, not necessarily being negative because they weren't punished necessarily in any way, but it's just like that peer pressure that then everybody can see what you're doing. I don't know whether that's something that you want to encourage or not.
Go past people's recycling bins and go, oh, I didn't realise that could be recycled.
Or like, wow, look how little they have. There was actually a quote on their website that said that it's to stimulate conversations with their neighbours. And so if somebody has less rubbish, then people might ask them, how did you do that?
It'd be interesting to know if that actually happened.
I know, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll wait for the full report of it.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. That's like the UCLA study on energy use.
Your favourite study. I can see you getting excited about it.
So it's by Climate Lab at UCLA, and I love them. They're so awesome.
Just as a note, you can go on their website and watch all of their, they're like half-hour episodes?
No, they're only like 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Even better.
You can make some crackers. Watch this same time.
And they have a whole lot of different topics, and one of them is around... Is this the energy use?
Well, it's just the introduction, actually, talking about why climate change is so hard for humans to comprehend and deal with. Which is a whole other subject. But the energy one, so they did it at the university, and they, similar to the Face Your Waste one, they showed people how much energy they were using in comparison to other people. And they also told people about energy. So that some of them, they said, this is how much money you've saved. Some of them, they said, if you use lots of electricity, children's health suffers. And then they measured to see who reduced the energy the most. And saving money doesn't entice people to save money. And partly because energy is so cheap, so it doesn't really make a difference. And, when people are confronted with pollution and children's health, especially if they had children, then they reduce their energy usage. But it's that thing with comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah. That is interesting, actually, because now that you say that, we're with Ecotricity and we have a summary on our statement that shows what the average is versus what we use. I don't know if everybody has that.
Are you above or below?
We're below, even with an electric vehicle.
You're below average energy
for New
use.
Zealand. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
But apparently, if you are better than average, you're more inclined to use a bit more.
Oh,
because you feel good about yourself.
Oh, look at me smug over here with my electric vehicle.
But apparently that can be changed with a smiley face on your statement, or a thank you very much for saving energy, which is amazing if that's all it takes is someone to acknowledge that you have done.
Wow, humans are so complicated.
Yeah. Were you going to tell us about gamifying sustainability?
Well, it was kind of similar to that California's Climate Lab one, that if you make people, even if they play against themselves. So in those examples, it's comparing people to other people. But there are apps that have shown that if you have like your old results or your old power bills or whatever, I guess, not necessarily power because that changes through the year as well. But that if you compete against yourself, then you're more likely to try harder because you're comparing it to something. It's not just being. It's not just you trucking along.
We're really social. Yeah. We like to be with other people and doing the same as other people.
And I think that gamifying stuff has become a really strong, like a big potential. It has a lot of potential is what I'm trying to say at the moment, because that's the way that people interact with the world in a lot of ways. So a lot of things are already gamified, or people who play games understand the concepts of gamifying, and there's a lot more people that have played games now than there were 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah. I with the reducing energy and saving money, or walking instead of driving and therefore saving money, sometimes I like to figure out how much money I've saved. Like if I don't drive to the shop and it's 2Ks, how much money that is, and then stick it in a jar.
Oh, that's a good way.
An old-fashioned getting a jar full of $1 coins, and then reward yourself with something.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I like it.
I should start doing that, but that involves calculating stuff.
You don't have to calculate it once, though.
Oh, good point.
Well, or you could just do it randomly, but I prefer it to be calculated.
My version of that is, I'll buy myself a treat.
You know, that doesn't work.
You have to,
yeah, especially if it's like a chocolate bar
from the other side of the world.
Yeah. No, you need it, because you need to see it filling up with coins in your jar.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it's fun.
That's a very positive reinforcement way of doing it.
You're listening to So Circular with Anthea Medill of Remix Plastic, featuring discussions on waste reduction and circular economy in practice. Brought to you with support from The Rubbish Whisperer and Plains FM.
Back to communicating sustainability with individuals. I've had somebody say to me that they were reducing their household waste and that their partner didn't agree with it and went out of their way to like hinder all of their attempts. So would go and buy stuff in packaging or like excess stuff. What would be your advice to that person? Because I didn't really know how to deal with that one.
I would say that if you personally have made the decision to reduce your waste, then it's just about you. So just keep going and let them do what, because you are not responsible for the entire world.
Yeah.
So do the things that you want to do, and I mean, even if it's your partner and you live in the same house and they're buying,
heartbreaking.
Yeah, just you don't have to eat that food.
Yeah,
you know, you can just keep on not buying whatever your chips or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that maybe it's is it just joking?
I don't know. No, I don't know. I guess it's like
you're changing the way that the family lives.
And I've been really lucky in that my partner has just been equally as on board as I have wanted. You know, like we've just done. He's pulled me up on stuff. Yeah, like free cookies and packaging. Damn, those free cookies, so good.
It tastes nicer because they're free.
I can't say no.
It's like if someone gives you a present and it's overpackaged and you have to pick your battles. You don't refuse a present that someone has bought you because it's wrapped in plastic.
Yeah.
You say, thank you very much.
I'll do something with that.
And then when you buy them a present, you buy a present that fits in with your values.
It is interesting in that we've had people get us like family presents, and the things that are for me are sustainable and the things that are for the other people in my family are not. And so friends and family get that I care about the environment, but they haven't like taken that further and put it onto all of the gifts. It's really interesting.
That is interesting.
I wonder how I broach that one.
I don't know. I think there's I wouldn't approach any gift-giving thing, because gifts are a nice thing that people do for you.
And that they've chosen to do.
And it's lovely that someone gives you a gift. I would
That's the thing, you pick
things.
other things to change, and I guess a lot of it is that you can only do what's within your control. So if it is somebody else buying stuff, then is what it is.
It's kind of, I mean, I guess it's like if you want to take up exercising and the person you're with doesn't. You just have to kind of do it. The other thing is to find some people who are on the same track as you.
And
so just find a friend.
Things that you do,
and then talk to them about it, and don't worry. Obviously, this person has got friends.
Don't have to go out hunting for
You don't have to go and find one.
Not like Helen a few years ago when nobody would talk to her.
People would talk to me.
Just about plastic bags all the time.
You do not need to talk to your sustainability friends about plastic bags all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we like to talk about things other than plastic bags. Yeah. I'm just going to put that in there.
Disclaimer for if you ever hang out with Helen.
Yeah.
And I guess that all comes back to if you're talking to one person, it's best to be positive. And if you're talking to a group, you then have the opportunity to be slightly more confrontational about it, because you're not singling out an individual or an individual's actions.
Have you done that? I don't think I've ever been confrontational.
I don't tend to. It's not really my approach. I know that there are people that do that, and on some occasions it can be reasonably successful for just kind of making people aware of the significance of the problem. You know, like Mike Joy. He's great at being confrontational, but
that's true.
He's exhausted from it. I just don't have the capacity to do that all the time.
Mike Joy is a freshwater ecologist.
There you go. Side note,
in case you don't know.
If you're not as nerdy as us.
Yeah.
So there are people. I think the world needs those people for certain things. So he's not necessarily singling out an individual that needs to change something. He's calling out the whole system, and I think that is necessary. Yeah,
you're right. We can't all sit around being massively
nice to
positive.
Each other.
I mean, how about I am super positive?
Yeah.
And so other people can take that negative bit.
Yeah. But the thing is that different people are good at different things as well. So I think it takes a certain type of person that can be confrontational without being ineffective.
That's true. If you're not normally a confrontational person, don't try and be confrontational over climate change or plastic bags or something. Just be who you are and do sustainability how you do sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good ending, isn't it? Yeah. That's quite uplifting, maybe. I was feeling a bit down for a bit there.
It's an emotional roller coaster.
The things we think about.
So for this week's Do One Challenge, what is your take-home for people to attempt?
My take-home is to plant a tree. Isn't it? It's good that.
That's simple.
It is. I was just thinking about how much I really like trees and how I wangled that into this episode really well. And if you plant a fruit tree, then you are also getting pesticide-free fruit that's not been shipped hundreds of miles, and you get to eat it.
Sweet bonus. Rewards.
Rewards and a tree.
Mine is going to be something quite simple, which is just say that you appreciate things that you recognise people doing. So if you go to a cafe and you see that they are offering a discount on using a reusable cup, then say, I think that that's awesome that you're doing that, because they probably don't often have people telling them that.
Probably not.
And so it's nice to tell people when they're doing the right thing.
Cool.
Cool. So in our next episode, we are going to be myth-busting compostable packaging, which is possibly my favourite topic.
You're going to love that.
So come along for some informative stuff about composting.
Cool. And can people send in some positive stories for us?
Yes, of course. Send us
or
your
tell us how you communicate sustainability.
Oh, yeah, if you've got other tips for us as well, because, it's always good to learn how to better communicate.
Yeah.
Send in stuff to us. Do it.
Okay.
So circular.
You can listen to all our shows online at plainsfm.org.nz. For details on upcoming shows and links to resources we've mentioned in this episode, visit remixplastic.com.